This is Backyard Productions Incorporated, presenting you with a short video on search patterns and strategies in the field. We're going to give you some hints on how to look for people, places, and things that may be lost or at least not yet found.
Hi Scouters. Tonight we're going to be talking about the Scout leader's worst nightmare. Going to a camp or camping and having you find out that you have missing 2 of your Scouts somewhere in the bush. We're going to be talking about preparing for that particular possibility and the things you can do should you have lost Scouts. How can you find them? How can you attempt to find them? We're going to be talking about search patterns. And we're going to be talking about a wagon wheel pattern for searching. And we'll be talking about the parallel pattern for searching. And we'll be talking about how to use the leapfrog method in both of those patterns.
You're going to hear about leapfrogging and the leapfrog method a lot in this video, so let's talk about it a little bit. What is it? Leapfrogging is a method of using a compass to walk a constant bearing, often called a transect, to walk a constant bearing over a long distance, whereby one person, called the scout, walks out to the limit of visibility, and that's going to be determined by the kind of terrain and other obstructions that are in the way, such as vegetation or buildings, walks out to the limit of visibility, and then the stationary anchor back at the starting spot directs the scout to move in such a way that he or she gets back on bearing. Everybody in the anchor group then leapfrogs or moves up to where the scout is, and a scout goes out again and the next leapfrog takes place, and this goes on and on. Why do we use this method? It's virtually impossible to walk a straight line, even with a compass and even on open ground. You've probably all heard stories about how people walk in circles, and it is impossible to walk a straight line over obstructed terrain, such as hills, valleys, swales, heavy vegetation, or buildings.
Things that the leadership should do is to make sure that each of your Scouts has a whistle. It would make this thing a lot easier if the Scouts that are lost have whistles. So each Scout should have a whistle, and it shouldn't be a metal whistle, it should be a plastic whistle, and I would highly recommend what they call the Acme Thunder whistle, and that's a whistle that normally football officials use, basketball officials use. It's a shrill, it's a loud whistle, and it can be heard for long distances in the woods or wherever it is you are. So basically, that's important. Okay, we're going to have to develop some type of search patterns to find your missing Scouts. We have 2 types of search patterns that we're going to be talking about. One is going to be the wagon wheel method, and the other is going to be the parallel pattern method. So let's take a look at a wagon wheel and what a wagon wheel looks like. A wagon wheel has a hub, and it has spokes that go out from the hub. And eventually it looks like, if you put all of these together, has a circle, and it looks sort of like a wagon wheel. Okay, now the search pattern is going to be out on each of those spokes. We're going to be searching each of the directions of those spokes. The first spoke is going to be 360. Next spoke is going to be 030. This one is going to be 090. This is going to be 330, and this is going to be 270. Now somewhere out here, somewhere in that quadrant, up in the upper part of this quadrant, that's where we think we know where our scouts might be. So we have a lost scout. Let's put the lost scout right here. That's the lost scout. Now our searchers are right here. So what we're going to do is go out each of these patterns, and we're going to use what we call the leapfrog method. And basically what's going to happen is we're going to send somebody out, stop, get together, come back out here and stop, go so far, over here and stop. And if we haven't seen anybody there, we all come back to the beginning. Then we go out on the next spoke and go out leapfrogging, and we'll talk more about the leapfrogging later, the actual aspect of leapfrogging. Don't see anybody here, we go back to the beginning. And now we go on the leapfrog in this direction, and as we're leapfrogging, bingo, we look over here and we actually spot our scouts off on the top over here. So we find our scouts utilizing the wagon wheel. Okay, now we're going to look at our second search pattern, which is called the parallel search pattern. We're down in this area here, right in here. That's where we are. And we're going to search, take a search, let's say at 090 in that direction, go so far, then go up, maybe a little further up on 90 degrees from that, then come back, paralleling this bottom place. So this is at 090, this is going to be 270, this will be 270, this is 090, and then we go up again, a short distance, and then do 090 again to a certain point, stop, go up, go 270, whoa, go 270 again, and then back up, go another 090, go up, and bingo, we find our scouts. That's our parallel method. Okay, and doing the search pattern, we're going to do this in what we call our leapfrog method. We got a number of scouts here. This is where we're starting. Let's say we have 3 scouts. So we're going to send a scout out at that 090 heading till he gets to a point and stops. And we can direct and make sure he's on that 090, and then we're going to all go over to him right here. We all meet with him right there. Then we send another scout out at 090, goes so far, stops, and then everybody meets him over here. And we continue with that. We go to our send a scout out, and we send in the others go over to reach him, and we see what it looks like now. What looks or appears to be a leapfrog type situation where we're going up and over. So we're going to continue to do that all the way through until we get to our scout. And I'm not going to spend much time here. So we do this all the way to this point here, and we're doing our leapfrog here, our leapfrog here, our leapfrog here, our leapfrog there, another leapfrog, get up here, a leapfrog, and that's when we spot it. Okay, we're going to be talking about signaling scouts as they're going out on a particular bearing. If they're in the woods, it's pretty difficult to make sure that you're always on the exact bearing when a boy walks out ahead. So what you're going to have to do is get a signal when he goes out a certain distance and he stops. When that scout stops, if he's, let's say he's to the left of the bearing, you're going to be indicating that you want him to go to the right. So you're going to be pointing to the right. And as he gets closer to the center, and he gets on the bearing, he stops. At that point, he knows he's right on the bearing. And then the next one, when you go to the next thing, it's the same process, in which the scout goes out, and in the woods it's difficult to stay on that particular bearing. The scout behind has his compass out, and he looks and he sees, and he gets him stopped, and he sees that he's off, let's say, to the right. So he's going to be pointing to the left, and the scout is going to be getting closer and closer and closer, and when he's actually where he should be on the bearing, you cross your hands like this, your arms like this, and he knows on the bearing, and then you walk to that scout. And then you do the same thing, and you walk to the next scout, and you walk to the next scout, so that you're always on the bearing that you've picked. If it happens to be 090, same thing here, or 270 here. So that's the signals that you would use to make sure that your scouts are all in a line and don't wander around all over your area. Let's see how leapfrog works in a real situation.
We went out to Thompson Park in Monroe Township to show you some demonstration of leapfrogging. First, we're going to show you leapfrogging in an open field where it's easier to see everything that's going on, and then we'll do some leapfrogging in the woods where it's a little more obstructed. Before we start though, let's have a reminder about how we're going to signal each other to make sure that we're on transect or we're walking a constant bearing. Okay, so we're in the field and we're looking for a lost scout, and we've decided it doesn't matter whether we're using parallel or wagon wheel. Here's the transect that we're going to use. We're going to be looking out at a bearing of 282 degrees. So Ray is now going to go ahead and walk out 282 degrees so that you can get an idea of how this leapfrog works. Go ahead, sir. Okay, so now I'm going to be giving him hand signals because he's a little off transect. I'm going to be giving him hand signals so that he gets back on course. And I've told him to stop, and he stops, and at this point I would walk out to him. All right, now let's see what this looks like from the other direction, from the direction of the person who is receiving the signals. Okay, so I've walked out on a transect of what I think is 282 degrees, but I'm probably a little bit off. So Ray is now going to give me directions to help me get back on course. Okay, now I'm on 282 degrees and Ray can leapfrog out to me and we can continue. Okay, so we've continued on our transect of 282 degrees. Ray has gone out again. He's a little bit off course, so I'm going to give him directions now to get him back on 282 degrees. I'm signaling for him to move to his left. Okay, getting close, and stop. So I've signaled him to stop. He's now back on 282 degrees. We're going to go and see what happens next. Okay, Ray is now going to continue on the transect of 282 degrees. And going to be going into some woods here.
I found him.
Aha, super. We found the scout. And there is our lost scout, found by Mr. Copperwatts. Good job. Okay, so we're on a transect again, looking for a lost scout, and Ray is going out we decided to go out about 62 degrees, and we've been leapfrogging along about 62 degrees for a while. And he's going to head out there and see if he can see the Scout. And now he's a little off transect, so I'm going to have to direct him back on when he stops. Okay, he looks like he's stopped. Okay, so now I have to direct him to move to his right. I have to direct him to move to his right so that he gets back on transect. And he's getting closer, looks like he's going to end up at that big tree there, and stop. Okay, so do we see any sign of the Scout at this point? Okay, no sign of the Scout, so we're going to have to return to the hub and go out on a different bearing to see if we can find him. Okay, so we've been leapfrogging along on another bearing. This time we decided to go out at about 160 degrees and see if we could see any evidence of the Scout. Okay, he's a little off transect. Okay, I'm going to have to get him to move to his left again because he's off transect. We want to get him back on 160 degrees. So he's moving in that direction through the woods. We can still see each other. Yeah, keep moving, sir. Keep moving. You're not quite on transect yet. And stop. Look around. Oh, we found him. And there is Mr. Copperwatts with our lost Scout. Okay, a successful search and we hope rescue. Here are some final thoughts for you. There are other search methods besides the wagon wheel and the parallel method, and we encourage you to go out on the internet and investigate some of these so that you're well prepared. These search methods do not only apply to finding people. They can be used when searching for things such as campsites or buildings, roads and trails, water bodies, water courses, or anything else that you need to find while outdoors. Questions that often come up with these search techniques are, how many spokes should my wagon wheel have, or how long should they be, or how far apart should they be spaced, or with the parallel method, how long should my parallels be, and how far apart, and how many? The answers to questions like this all depend on who or what for which you're searching, how many people and how much time is available to search, and how rugged or obstructive the terrain is. You are going to have to make your best guesses at these answers. There's no magic formula. On the one hand, you don't want your parallels or your spokes to be so far apart that you might miss the object of your search. And on the other hand, you don't want them to be so close together that you waste time covering the same ground. So it does take some thought and it does take practice. These techniques and the leapfrog method are good exercises for your unit. It helps the Scouts to learn how to work together and gives them some idea of what they might have to do if they were involved in an actual search. So get your Scouts out there into the field, get them practicing, get them working together.